Hey everybody, Theresa DeGray here with Consumer Legal Services. So I have been wanting to do another video for so long, and like all the stars literally just aligned today for me to be home alone. My husband's at work, my son is at school, and I actually don't have any appointments until 1 o'clock today. So I have all my stuff that I want to talk about. I have an article up that I wrote in a recent local newspaper, and I just kind of want to riff on the article and talk to you a little bit about the history of credit cards. I thought that that was a really great, interesting topic. And I don't know if many of you know this. Well, let's back up for a second. So a lot of you know that I'm an attorney, and a lot of you know that I practice bankruptcy law, foreclosure defense, divorce, probate, things like that. But I also write articles for a local newspaper called the Milford Orange Times. My office used to be in Milford, and my office is now in Orange. And recently I had written an article called Credit Cards Are a Modern American Invention. And I just thought it was such an interesting topic. I had been kind of thinking about writing the article for a while, and then my husband took me to this place in New Haven called the English Market, and it's got lots of old things there for sale. It's kind of like a real high-end tag sale type of situation. And I found in the little settees that they had set up in the front of the store with like little china and cups and tea saucers and all that, they had some old magazines, and I love magazines. So I don't know if anybody knows that about me, but I absolutely love magazines. So I was flipping through the magazine and I came across this, a real old school, old fashioned credit card application. And I thought, first of all, well, how cool is that, right? Because it reminded me kind of my childhood, because this magazine was the April edition in 1987. I was 8 years old at that point. So it kind of reminded me of my childhood, but then also cringeworthy, right? So cringy, because they ask you for things like, obviously your name and everything. But then they ask you for your social security number and your mother's maiden name. So, and then they ask you to pull this out and tape it together and mail it. No postage necessary, of course. So just really ridiculous, because, anybody could just grab that out of the mail and steal your entire identity there. So not really great, right? So I was writing this article, and I started out with, have you ever thought about the history of currency? Of course we have cash and paper money and all of those things, and checks. So I started talking about barter. Barter was actually the first type of currency. I would bring you, plants and flowers and fruit plants and all of that if you brought me bread or grains or something like that. And years ago, we would exchange for barter. And then paper money came to fruition in the 9th century. And in the 17th century, we got checks. And then in the 19th century, we got charge accounts. So that's where credit cards came in to play. And as I was doing all the research for the article, I came across, people kept mentioning this highly provocative novel. This 1888 utopian novel called Looking Backward. So if you're local to Orange, you know that we have the Case Memorial Library, which is a huge part of my life. I go there all the time to grab things and take my kid and all that stuff. So I looked up on their online card catalog to see if they had a copy of this utopian novel called Looking Backward, and sure enough, they had a copy. And this is overdue. this is overdue. I'm a bad girl. I should have returned it to the library, like, I don't know, 2 months ago, right? So it turns out that our library has done away with late fees. Don't know why, don't get it, kind of don't understand it. But they have, so I am gonna return it because it does belong to the library and not on my shelf. So, but in the novel, which I will certainly tell you that I did not read it cover to cover, but I did read parts of it. It talks about modern inventions like public storehouses and debit cards, and it mentions the words credit card multiple times. So it became rather interesting to me that somebody in 1888 could have had that thought and that idea, and how that would come to fruition. So these storehouses that they really talked about, where you could purchase things on credit, was really kind of like the modern day invention of like a Costco or a like a Walmart type of situation. So anyway, charge cards, charge accounts really were the first thing that came into the business arena. And what you would do is you would go to a certain store and they would have a charge account for you. You would charge on your account at that store. And then the public, there became a demand for more of a wider general credit system, credit charging system. So as a result, as I did my research, I found out that we got first the Diners Club, and then came along airline credit cards, and eventually the American Expresses, the MasterCards, the Visas, the big guys in the arena. And then in the 70s, credit cards were becoming more common, but women couldn't have one without a cosigner, a male cosigner. So then we got, in 1974, the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, which made it unlawful to discriminate on the basis of things such as race, religion, and gender orientation. So then we got the Fair Debt Collections Practices Act, which is the FDCPA, which was a amendment of the Consumer Credit Protection Act, and that protected consumers from the abusive collection practices with regard to credit cards. And then I go on and on about all that in the article, but ultimately that is the history of credit cards. But nowadays I do a lot of credit card defense. So people come to me, they're being sued by credit cards. Maybe they're in just the beginning stages of it where the credit card companies are harassing them, or they've been sent to collection agencies, and I help them a little bit with that. But I don't usually get involved until they are in the realm of a court, so they're being sued. So credit card lawsuits could be sort of what I would call a gateway drug to like a bankruptcy or some other alternatives. Or it could just be a standalone service that I provide to people. So credit card lawsuits are pretty simple. You know, you're being sued for the credit card. There really is only one defense there. So that defense would be fraud. And fraud can be found in a couple different ways. Fraud can be found in your identity theft, right? So somebody steals your identity, signs up for a credit card in your name, charges it all up to the max, and then you get the bill. And then you don't pay it, and then you get sued. Fraud can also be somebody actually stole your credit card. You know, I had my car broken into earlier this year. You know, luckily I obviously knew about it right away, so I called all the banks, I called all the companies, I shut everything down. So that could be another form of fraud, where somebody steals your credit card and charges unlawful charges on the credit card, and then you get sued for non-payment. In that regard, you have to make a police report. If you don't make a police report, you really don't have, you know, evidence of the situation. So I do a lot of that work. I also do a lot of post-judgment work. So once a credit card company sues you and they get a judgment against you, maybe you didn't know that that happened because you moved and the credit card company only had your last known address on file, or maybe you knew about it, but you just couldn't handle it at that time. So you come to me after the fact. And if you don't pay on judgments like that, the credit card companies can do a couple different things to you. They can do what's called a wage execution, where they garnish your wages. They can do what's called a bank execution, where they sweep out your bank account, or they can put liens on property that you own, especially real estate. So there's different things that the credit card companies can do to collect upon you. I do a lot of defense around that area. And then sometimes that does lead to a bankruptcy. So if you have multiple credit cards, a lot of credit card debt, the rule of thumb is anything over $10,000 in unsecured credit card debt, and you qualify for bankruptcy, then maybe that is the best option. Maybe that is the best option for you at that point. So I just wanted to come on. I wanted to share a video. I wanted to share my resources. I wanted to share that I write articles for the local newspaper, and I just kind of wanted to touch base with you in this medium. I haven't shared a video in a long time, and I thought it would be a great opportunity to open up the discussion about situations like this. So if you yourself, or you know a family member or a friend or a colleague that is going through something like this, maybe they can't sleep at night, maybe they have a court date coming up, maybe they're just inundated with debt, please have them reach out. Theresa DeGray, Consumer Legal Services. I believe I am the only attorney DeGray in the state of Connecticut. So if you just put in Google attorney DeGray, I should pop right up. But if you need me, you can always call me, text me, or reach out to me at the office. Take care. Have a great day. Bye.